Hi everybody, what's going on? This is The Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Timothy Greenfield-Sanders is with us. Toni Morrison, The Pieces I Am. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Pleasure.
So this has been your project for a couple years now. I mean, you've been living in Toni Morrison's world. I mean, you've known her for many decades, but specifically, what's it been like the last couple of years unpacking her whole story?
Kind of started around 2015. Toni had written a introduction to a film I did called The Women's List, and she read it. And so we went up to talk to her and get her to read it onto a tape recorder for the film, and kind of started to broach the idea of a film about her. And she didn't say no. So
that's a good start. Yeah.
It was a very good start. And I think it was her concern was what kind of energy she'd have to put into it, that she didn't want to spend a lot of time on something like this. You know, what do you need from me?
Right.
And am I willing to even give you that? And once we assured her that we just needed some interviews and I would do the rest, we got going on it.
There's a lot to unpack in that story too. I mean, you've spent time with a lot of really fascinating and incredible people. When you think about Toni and the woman that she is, what separates her from the rest of the pack?
You know, as a photographer, I've photographed some of the most famous and talented people, notorious people
ever
out there. I think there's something they all have in common, which is a certain drive and kind of intensity and talent. And Toni has all of that, but I think her talent is monumental. That there are writers, and then there's Toni Morrison, and I don't think I quite understood the breadth of her story until we started making the film, because as a friend, you kind of, it's not superficial, but it's more of a friendship. It's not about like, oh, and you were the editor at Random House.
You're not focusing on her career.
You're not talking about that, you know. You're talking about what are we having for lunch.
Right.
And so once you start to go in depth into someone's life, it's not only fascinating, but it's also very informative.
So how did you guys first become friends? What's the backstory?
Toni came into my little East Village studio in 1981.
Nice.
She was smoking a pipe. And she told me recently that Angela Davis got her hooked on smoking pipes. They used to smoke pipes together. And she was doing, it was Tar Baby was the book that was out. And I did a cover for a magazine, a newspaper that then called the Soho News, which was a hipster weekly. Way before your
definitely
time.
Before my time.
So this was a really cool kind of downtown weekly that covered arts and politics and everything. And they assigned Toni to me. And we became friends at that moment, really. And I became her kind of go-to photographer, that she'd call me up and say, I have a new book and I need a jacket and, you know, stuff like that. And that's where the friendship really developed.
I gotcha. So you've been friends with her for a long time. You start to look into her life, her career. What are the most fascinating parts to you? Because I could tell you 4 or 5 different things that I thought were great. What sticks out to you about that whole story?
I think what we wanted to show was that there was more to Toni Morrison than just the winner of the Nobel Prize, which people associate with her, and the writer of Beloved. There's this single mother of 2 boys. There's a tremendous career at Random House as an editor, and her influence on culture and the books that she brought to the foreground, Toni Cade Bambara, Angela Davis, Muhammad Ali, all of these people that were, you know, she was the editor for their books. And then Toni, the professor, Toni who taught at all these different universities, particularly Princeton, where she created the atelier. And so I wanted to kind of show this bigger picture of this amazing life, really.
Yeah, definitely. And there were a couple different little simple things that were really profound to me. So like, number one, her waking up really early in the morning and writing before her kids got up. That was something that just stuck out to me. And then all the readings she did as a kid. Like, you can just contribute those 2 things to the woman, the author, or the writer she became.
We tried to show her process, and how do you do that? It's kind of difficult to show the process of a writer, other than they're sitting there writing. I remember when I was growing up, I was sort of in my teens, and someone told me that Hemingway got up very early and stood in front of a lectern and wrote standing up. And And I thought, oh, is that how writers work? You know, I didn't know. And so I was very interested in what Toni's process was. And the fact that she got up early was because really she had young children. So she needed to get up before they were up. And also I think there was a beauty to the world that she appreciated the sun rising.
Totally.
And we covered that in the film. We were very lucky. We had a guy named Mead Hunt who lives near Toni's house. And we assigned him the year to take pictures, video of different seasons, really. So we used that in the film to kind of show.
There's some nice scenics in there.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
Definitely. So when you think about her, I mean, she mentions it in the documentary, fighting the white man's gaze has been her mission, and also not really caring what the white man thinks of her stuff. So what was it like trying to harness that in the filming and get that out of her as you're going along in the documentary? Well,
I think I wanted very much for Toni to tell her story, so that it's not this white man telling her story. And I think we start the film with that very early, Toni explaining the white male gaze and how it was her mission to kind of, as she says, knock the little white man off your shoulder who's looking at everything you're doing and analyzing it and critiquing it and judging it. And she said that once she was able to kind of get rid of him, she was able to be free and she could write about anything.
And even going off that, like the point she made about Frederick Douglass, like she could tell that he held back.
Amazing.
And that was really telling, because think about all the great work he did, and there's somebody in Toni Morrison who's able to just unleash and fully put out the writing that she wanted to do. It's pretty spectacular.
It was a wonderful moment in the film, really, where she talks about that, because we don't think that way. We think, oh, it's Frederick Douglass. It's so interesting. And she's going, no, well, he's hiding stuff, or he's ignoring stuff because it's white people, abolitionists, who were hiring him or kind of supporting him, really. And there was only so much he could talk about, and she felt he held back.
Definitely. So there were a lot of people along the way that certainly impacted her. Oprah is one of those people. You talked to her. What do you think Oprah's greatest impact was on Toni? Well,
I think that I would reverse it. I would say that Toni loves Oprah. Sorry, that Oprah loves Toni Morrison.
Definitely.
Sorry, and that Oprah really appreciates what Toni did for literature, and that the book club then was a way to kind of give back to Toni. Oprah had Toni 4 times on the book club, which certainly was very good for sales, I'm sure.
No doubt.
And I think that Oprah deeply feels the books, that Beloved was a mission of hers to make a film out of it, that she really wanted to bring that to the world.
And I was saying off camera before, I read Beloved in high school, and that just emotionally hits you right in the heart. And it's a story for me growing up in the suburbs as a white kid, like never exposed to anything like that. And I think men and women all around the country were really just hit hard by her writing in many different forms.
Angela Davis says in the film that you could never look at slavery again in the same way, that it changed the way America and even the whole world looked at slavery.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Muhammad Ali before, and I thought those stories were really interesting because Muhammad didn't look at women, he didn't treat women in such a respectful way, but Toni found a way to break through. So what was the most interesting part of that relationship to you?
You know, she liked him very much. She said he was very funny, and that once in the film she talks about how she realized that she couldn't be the girl. She had to be a woman talking to her, the mother figure. And once she did that, he paid attention to her, looked at her. But other than before that, he would just kind of look off at a man if she asked him a question. We cut to, at the end of that little segment, a portrait I took of Muhammad Ali. That's my picture of him.
So when was that when you took that?
I took that in the kind of the 80s, and I remember very well. It was a photo session. He came in, and I said to him, would you like to sit in this stool? And he said, you call me a fool? And I was like taken aback, and then he smiled, and you know, he was so charming and kind of like that.
I mean, that's a larger-than-life personality.
Oh my God, he was amazing, and I was very honored to shoot him.
Yeah, definitely. So thinking about the breadth of her life and her career, The Bluest Eye was certainly a book that caused some controversy.
Still does.
Yeah. So is that surprising to you that it's that book comparatively to some of the other books, or how do you look at The Bluest Eye compared to some of the other work she's done?
Bluest Eye is a radical book.
Yeah.
It's a very radical book, and it deals with incest, and I think that it was Toni's first book. It was a breakthrough in many ways. It's all from a black perspective. She was interested in what little girls thought. She'd never seen anything written about little girls from the way they were thinking. And so, you know, she put herself into that mindset and wrote this magnificent first book that's today still controversial and then also read by everyone today. You know, it's a key piece of literature.
Absolutely. And, you know, thinking about her life too, I mean, I think about her fighting for pay equality in the 70s and getting it done in the 70s too. And I think about what women are doing today, and I'm like, Toni was doing it then and she got it done. So it's pretty cool to see.
She said, I am head of household just like you, she would say to her boss. And I was with someone recently, they said, I'm going to use that line. You know? Such a good line.
You need examples like that because so many people feel uncomfortable wanting or asking for things like that. But yeah, we should all be making the same thing for in similar jobs like that.
There's a confidence that Toni Morrison has always had.
Where does that come from, do you think?
I think that she grew up very loved. I mean, I'm not a psychologist,
sure,
so
but just from your
but I think I would
yeah.
say her father, she talked a lot about, in some of the interviews that we didn't use, but she talked a lot about how much her father appreciated her and told her how smart she was. And she really was, that was reinforced, I think, from her parents. And she also grew up in Lorain, Ohio, where it was a very integrated, very poor, kind of non-racist world, really.
It wasn't like the rest of the world.
It wasn't. It was surprisingly equal in a sense, she says. And it wasn't until she went to Howard University that she understood skin tone and all the issues that even in a black school they were conscious of.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So when do you think the scale tipped for her in terms of being in that conversation like a Hemingway or an F. Scott Fitzgerald, that we just think about her in the greatest author conversation?
I think Beloved was the tipping point. That once that book came out, it was undeniable that this talent is so big and so brilliant, and the world had to. It was a worldwide sensation.
Totally.
It was, and she's published everywhere. So, but even when Beloved came out, and then when she won the Nobel, we have in the film how she was attacked for being not good enough to receive the Nobel, and it's a politically, motivated choice, and all this crap that she had to put up with. I mean, here she is getting the biggest honor in the world of literature.
The biggest honor you could think of,
yeah. And people were trying to diminish her.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story her whole life. Like you guys threw up the New York Times review, and it's like that writer is saying it's limiting to only write about black people. It's like, give me a break.
Right.
We've never seen stories like this before.
But that was, in 1983 about Sula in the New York Times, and that was perfectly an acceptable thing for a writer to say.
Yeah. We didn't bat an eyelash, you know? It's like, oh, that person's a critic, we can just throw that out there.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, now we have the perspective here.
Yeah.
Take a step back. And I think it's cool because with a film like this, we can really fully appreciate not only the work of Toni Morrison, but who she has been her whole life, which is a cool thing.
She's a role model.
Yeah.
If there ever was a role model, it's Toni Morrison. She was a strong woman who knew her strengths, when it was a very, very hard thing to do.
And it seems like just from watching the film and reading the other things about her, just such a solid foundation. Some of these other authors, they make it big, a movie's made about their book, it changes their whole life.
Right.
It doesn't seem like fame really altered her in such a profound way.
I don't think it did.
And why do you think that was?
Because I think in her mind and we sort of say it at the film, there's two Tonys. There's Chloe Walford and there's Toni Morrison. And I think she understands that Toni Morrison is this public figure and that Chloe is who she is.
Yeah.
I was with her recently signing some posters for the project, for the film, and she's writing Toni Morrison. And she goes, I hate that name. And I said, Toni, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, it's like, long gone at this point.
So she wrote to me, to Timothy, love Chloe Walford.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I love that.
That's really nice. So what did she think when she saw the full thing?
She turned to me and she said, I like her.
She's a very likable person.
Yeah. About herself.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that because you have people from an older generation that grew up with her, read all her books, people from a newer generation who may not be exposed to her that are learning about her for the first time. So what are the biggest things you want people to take away if they don't know the Toni Morrison story?
I think if you see the film, you're going to want to read her books. And if you already read them, you're going to want to reread them.
That's where I'm at. I want to read more, you know?
Or you're going to read ones you haven't read. You know, she tells her story, and you feel like you know her the way we've shot it. This direct-to-camera of Toni, the others talking off camera. And it's a way to kind of bring her very close to you, the Toni that I know as a person.
Yeah, and that's kind of your artistic style too, right? Just have somebody look right into the lens and kind of expose their whole human emotion.
Right.
So you've done that with your photography for years. So how did you develop that style over the years?
You know, my portraiture is very much a single light source. I should do it this way. A single light source. It's always on that side.
Yep.
A clean backdrop and a direct-to-camera gaze for the subject. And I translated that to film for the List series that I did, all the films on identity, where we have those people talking directly to camera. Today, everyone tries to do that because it works very well.
Sure,
you know?
You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah. Right. I'm not the first. There are important filmmakers who kind of pioneered it, going way back to Shirley Clark and
all the way back.
You know, all this Warhol as well. But Errol blocking his name. Morris.
Errol Morris, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think what we did here, which you don't see in a film, is that we've mixed it so that Toni is talking to camera, the others, as I said, are looking off camera. So it focuses on her, and they are kind of talking about her.
Yeah, and they did a great job in talking about her.
Great people.
And I just couldn't, I told you before, I can't believe she's 88 years old.
No.
It really is mind-boggling how she looks 20 years younger.
It's good lighting.
Yeah, good lighting, you know, good life, maybe that too.
No, Toni looks beautiful.
Yeah.
She's, also, she said to me once, she said, I let you see me in a portrait. And subjects can hold back easily if they know, if they want to. And Toni's always been very open to me in that friendship and that portraiture that we've done together. And I think that's seen here as well, that she's letting us see her.
Definitely. So what do her days look like these days?
You know, she lives on the river and she's writing still, and she's 88. So you're dealing with being 88 instead of 67 or
25.
25. Wow. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah. And it's always interesting with authors because, after they're gone, we find so much of their work. But at the same time, she has produced so much work from her literary days through being an author.
It's a mind-blowing body of work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we get the full 2-hour experience with her.
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways when people check it out on Friday?
Oh gosh, I think you're going to learn about who Toni Morrison is as a kind of the person she is, and the accomplishments will impress you, and you will like her. You will come away feeling that you want to kind of learn from her and be like her, and you'll get guidance from her.
And hang out with her.
Hang out with her if you could.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well, Timothy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Very nice time.
Why don't you tell everybody here where they can check out the film and when is it going to be up?
June 21st, Film Forum in New York and Film Society Lincoln Center, and then at BAM, and then ToniMorrisonFilm.com. You can punch in your location and it'll tell you where in the country the film will be.
Good deal.
So
highly recommend this one. That's Timothy. I'm DJ. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.
Thank you.